Oh my. Good evening. How are we doing? Hi. Okay. One moment, please.
Hello guys, welcome to my channel.
Hi. One moment, please. Okay. Yes. How are we? How are we doing? All right. Good evening. I was trying to fix something right there. How are we doing today? Welcome. We're talking about screen time and your children, screens and your children today. And I think it's important because, like I like to say, we do the best with what we know. If we don't know better, then we don't exactly have the resources to do better. So I think it's important for parents to know, and what I'm trying to do here is to help you make an informed decision, right? So I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm not hi Bolaji, how are you? Thank you for joining. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, right? I'm just trying to give you information, okay? So that you can make an informed decision. An informed decision is based on information, right? That is what informs the the informed aspect of the decision making process. So as a parent, you need to know the risks involved, how you can use screens to the benefit of, hi dear, good evening, thank you for joining, how you can use screens to the benefit of your child rather than do it because someone else is doing it, okay? And sometimes it's very easy for us to just kind of join the bandwagon in our parenting, right? So somebody has done something, or somebody's child goes to this school, or somebody's child bought this tablet or one thing or the other for their child, and sometimes we undergo peer pressure as well as adults, right? You don't want it to seem like your child is missing out, or you don't want it to seem like your child is deprived of something. So the question is this really absolutely necessary? Now, like I said, informed decision. So I'm not here to tell you it's right or it's wrong, right? Because I don't know your lifestyle. I don't know what your child requires. I don't know what your child's capabilities are. So if your child is a computer whiz, for instance, and I tell you screen time is bad, right? Screens are bad. Don't give your child screens and all of that. Then I'm not helping you, right? I'm not giving you the best information. And you shouldn't listen to me, because your child needs this to develop this particular aspect of their capacity. So you shouldn't listen to someone who says outrightly screens are bad. But you also need to know that there's regulation. It's important for regulation, right? It's important to regulate anything that you expose children to. And I think I read a report of one of these tech founders who said he doesn't give his children a tablet, right? He doesn't give his children access to a tablet because it's addictive. The screens are addictive. So if someone who has invented this product or has created a platform to sell this product or an app or something says he doesn't expose his own children to it for reasons best known to him, then one should question why. Why should my child be the guinea pig? Why should my child have access to this thing that you who created it isn't going to allow your own child to use it? So I just want to give us information. That's my goal here this evening. Give you information, let you make an informed decision. You choose, you decide what you do, armed with information. That's what being intentional is all about. Seeking information, doing what is best for your child, not because everybody's doing it, not because it's the fad, not because it's a trend. Every child is holding a tablet. Does your child need a tablet? Okay, so that is the question we're trying to answer today, and I'm going to put information in front of you. Now, I'm going to be mentioning children from different age groups, so you have to pick what is applicable to you at the stage where your child is, at this point where your parenting is happening, right? And in your own peculiar and particular circumstance. It's important for you to take this information and distill it and pick what applies to you as a parent and for your child, right? So, for instance, if you have a child who is struggling with focus, struggling with concentration, then your go-to should not be a computer screen. You should give your child tasks. You should help them build their concentration, because screens are addictive and they are negative for what your child is trying to the skill your child is trying to learn or build on, right? So the screen is not what you want to give your child access to, at least unfettered, unlimited access. Now, the internet is a different conversation. So my discussion today is not based on the internet. The internet is a different issue, right? But I should mention here that you shouldn't put an internet accessible device in your child's hands without teaching them how to manage the internet. You shouldn't do that without giving them ground rules, without a system of monitoring. As a parent, you shouldn't give your child access to, say, Netflix, for instance, without proper monitoring and without proper training. So you need a system, right? You need a system, you need a framework in which you give your child access to this item, and you have a method of monitoring, and you have a system of consequences when there are infractions. Because, like we know, as parents, children will test us, and they will test limits, they will test waters, they would attempt something and then take it a little further, and it's your responsibility to bring them back. But if there's no guiding line, if there's no line in the sand, if you will, if there's no particular position that you have taken, that you have agreed, right, between both of you, you and the child that you're giving this tablet or this computer to, if there are no ground rules, then what are you working with? Where do you draw this child back to, right? If you have not let your child know that the internet can be very, very useful, but also can be very dangerous, right? If you have not let this child know, and there are no ground rules, like you don't open tabs without checking with me. If you see something that you're not supposed to see, put it off. If you don't put safeguards in place on apps and all of that, to disable adverts, for instance, such that things that you don't want your child to see don't suddenly pop up in front of this child, and in a fleeting moment, all the work, well, a good amount of the work you have done raising this child can be dismantled. And if you've not built trust such that this child can bring this information back to you and say, "Mommy, I saw this. Daddy, I saw this. What do I do with this information? What do I do? What does this mean?" If you have not worked on that relationship to build enough trust in your child, then it's risky. Okay, it's risky. That's all I'm going to say. It's risky for you to put that kind of child, to give that kind of child unfettered access to the internet. But today we're talking about screens. Phones, yes, handheld devices, phones, smartphones, tablets, computer screens, and all of that. That's what we're looking at today. So for a parent with a child, is a child under 2, right? Screens are not advisable. The American Pediatrics Association does not encourage parents to give their children who are under 18 to 24 months access to screens. Why? Because that is not the kind of stimulation that they need. In fact, it is said that exposure to screens limits a baby's ability to read human emotion, to control their frustration. They are unable to have their brain functioning at full capacity. They don't get the best out of that period of their lives, because they're supposed to spend it playing, interacting with other babies, touching, sensory play, and all of that. Because the screen time, okay, let me use an analogy. Say for instance, you feed your child junk food, right? Your child only eats, which you won't do as a responsible parent. Your child only eats snacks. Oh my goodness. I just dropped my devices. Okay, I am just going to pick them up, and we're going to get back to our conversation, okay? All right. Yes, and we're back. So, like I was saying, if you can't feed your child only junk food, for instance, your child can't reasonably survive on snacks, on pastries, right? On hi Mayo, how you doing? Thank you for joining us. On what are those snacks? I don't eat a lot of them, so I don't know. Donuts and all of that. Let's say junk food, okay? Let's just group it under junk food, very fast food, okay? You won't feed your child on that alone, right? You would make your child's diet as varied as possible because you want your child to get the best out of their meals, right? And if you fill that child up with a lot of junk food, then there won't be space for actual food, right? So you want to regulate what your child eats. You want to make sure that your child is feeding on fruits and nuts and carbs in balanced proportions, right? If you focus on the junk alone, then there won't be space for the vegetables, the greens, the proper actual food, body sustaining food, proteins and vitamins that your child needs to consume. So a baby is growing, and then rather than fill their brain boosting capacity with sensory play, with actual play between you and the child to boost their emotional development, social skills and all of that, if you give them too much access to, if you give them any access, it's not advisable, okay? If you give them access to screens, then you're reducing the capacity this child has to learn these other things because you have filled that space with screens, right, that are not exactly beneficial to the child, right? So like I said, we're talking about screens, telephones, tablets, computers, whatever. So in our world today, screens are everywhere. Everywhere you look, a child's development is what word am I going to use now? Is interjected, right, with opportunities to watch TV. Now the parent is busy, the caregivers are busy, and there's screens, there's TV, there's something you need to keep your child occupied while you get other things done, right? But it is not advisable for you to rely on screens to raise your child, to be your child's sole source of stimulation for children under 18. Now, as your child grows up after age 2, I said 18 to 24 months, right? After age 2, then there is some benefit, right, to screens, okay? There is there's information that have been packaged, that babies have been studied about how they learn, and there's information that has been packaged in a way that they're able to retain and remember. Music, for instance, moving pictures, colors, colorful images, right? Your child can actually learn from this. So like I said earlier, we can't outrightly say that screens are bad, okay? Screens are not outrightly bad, but there has to be regulation, there has to be intentionality. So as a parent, you want to find out that, you want to be sure that your child is getting a balanced diet, a balanced stimulation situation as your child is growing up. After age 2, unstructured play is important for a child's development, okay? It's more valuable for your child's development than screen time. So if that's all your child gets, you're good. You're not missing so much when your child is age 2, between 2 and 4. You're not missing that much if your child does not have access to screens, okay? Now, you as a parent are your child's first teacher. So if you can teach what your child is going to learn from these cartoons, the colors and stuff, then your child is not missing that much. Now, as your child grows up, they can benefit from some screen time, like I said. So music, you want to make sure that you're looking out for shows that have music in them, that have movement. So they're learning, things are moving around the screen. So you remember we're talking about brain stimulation right now. So movement, stories, and you need to be involved. This is where the challenge is. A lot of parents push this child in front of the screen and then they walk away. No, it's a learning experience. Remember, we said it is good for your child if they are learning something. So you want to be involved, you want to stay there with the child, you want to sing along, you want to make it a bonding opportunity, you want to interject information, you want to check that the child is picking up something. From age 2, your child is mumbling a few words, so your child can say yes, they can say no. Are you having fun? What is that? Okay, so what color is that? So there is interaction. It's not just a blank stare, just like that for an hour, for 2 hours. The child is just absorbing information. It is not learning. Learning is not exactly taking place, because at that age the child benefits from stimulation, from interaction. So you need to hang around. And I should mention here that too much or poor quality screen time has been linked to a number of issues in children. This is research. This is not my information. This is research that is available anywhere. Okay, so this is actual research, and informed parenting requires information. That is the information that I'm bringing to you this evening. So poor quality or too much screen time in children has been linked to obesity, has been linked to irregular sleep schedules or shorter duration of sleep. It has been linked to behavioral problems. It has been linked to loss of social skills. It has been linked to violence. It has been linked to less time for play. Now, we've said earlier that unstructured playtime is valuable for your child. So again, with the diet analogy, if you're replacing valuable playtime with screen time, then you're shortchanging the child's development, and there will be a problem at the end of the day. Now, obesity is obviously obvious, because the child is stationary, sedentary. The child is just seated there and eating and watching and absorbing this thing. They're not moving around, right? There's this show my children used to watch when they were younger on CBBS. After a few shows, I think maybe 2 or 3 shows, then there is this thing that comes up that gets them to move around, right? They're forced to stretch. There's dancing, there's jumping. Now that tells you that the creators of those programs have thought about it, that these children who are watching these things for extended periods, they don't get to move around. So they have been thoughtful in providing an avenue for the child to move and dance and jump and exercise some way while watching TV. Now that's smart, but not every TV or app producer or creator has factored that into it. So if you as a parent are not aware that this can cause obesity, then you are the one who should come and stop that TV from playing and say, okay, go and play, move around, jump around, or do whatever. Okay, if you don't know that the child is missing something by not moving around, by not having their limbs move and exercising, then you won't do anything about it. Okay, so I've told you that your child needs to move around. All right, so irregular sleep, obviously the impact of the screens on the eyes of the child, especially for parents who are not aware that blue light filter is important when you're looking at it. Even as an adult, when you're using your computer or tablet, you want to put on your phone, you want to put on the blue light filter, because the light hits your eyes straight on, and this can affect sleep. You know, when you wake up in the middle of the night and you reach for your phone, and then you're not able to sleep anymore. So the child that's supposed to nap during the day is occupied, not gainfully, by the television or by the computer or by the tablet, right? So you're shortchanging your child's sleep with unrestricted and unregulated access to screens. Behavioral problems also stem from excessive screen use, because you find in some cases when the tablet is taken from the child, then all hell breaks loose and there's a tantrum, and you don't want the child to embarrass you outside, so you quickly give the child back. And what you're reinforcing is to the child is that tantrums get results, right? So once the child knows that, okay, if I shout, I get what I want, then the child has applied it to your phone or your screen and it has worked, and they would apply it to other things, and this builds up. Gradually this builds up, and then you find you're like, where did this come from? This child is just defiant. No, you have taught the child that once they shout, because you have given your phone or your tablet to a child that is still trying to figure things out, you have reinforced the idea that tantrums are effective, okay, whether you like it or not. Okay, so it can cause behavioral problems, loss of social skills. The time your child is supposed to spend hanging out with people, picking up on facial cues, learning about people, about human emotion, has been dedicated to this screen that is not teaching this child these skills, right? So again, it's understandable that excessive or poor quality screen time would be linked to this. Violence for parents who somehow manage to let their children play violent games. There are a lot of them, and it's worrying, it's concerning that those things actually exist. But if there was no patronage for them, they won't exist anymore. But for some reason, some children still have access to games where they shoot, and there's bloodshed, and there's this and that. So the child who is still learning, whose frontal cortex is still developing, thinks it's okay to replicate what they have seen in the game. Therefore, violence. And the last one, less time for play. Your child benefits from unstructured play. If you replace that play time with screen time, then they're not playing, therefore they're not getting that benefit. Okay, so it makes sense. Like I said, as your child grows, a one-size-fits-all approach will not work, right? Because you need to decide for yourself how much screen time is valuable to this child. You need to make an informed decision. An hour per week, an hour per day. And please note, I've mentioned 3 devices: tablets, computers, TVs. Okay, 4 phones. When you say an hour per day, be careful not to do an hour per device, because that's 4 hours per day. If that's what you want to do, then you're making an informed decision. But if you're saying an hour per day or 2 hours per day, then you want to be careful to split it across all of those platforms where your child can be exposed to screens. Now, it's not advisable to introduce screens to children under 2, but from ages 2 to 5, you can actually do an hour a day of high quality programming. Now, we're going to talk about how to identify high quality programming, or tips for deciding what is high quality programming in a bit. But you need to, like I said, put ground rules in place. If you don't want to reward or reinforce the idea that tantrums work, then you need to put ground rules in place, and you need to be constrained to abide by those rules that you put in place. So if the child throws a tantrum, you need to let the child know that this phone is my phone, it is not our phone, therefore you don't have access to it except I say it's okay. All right, you need to let that child know. Now, remember that the quality of programming or viewing or media that your child is exposed to is more important than the length of time. So you want to be intentional about what you're dedicating that hour of screen time to. If it is a learning tool, then they have to be learning something. They are not watching just for nothing. If it is an app, for instance, it has to be teaching them something. They are not just sitting with it to pass time or to watch for no reason. I like CBBS. I'm not asking you to let your child watch CBBS, but I like CBBS because it's educational. It's not just those random. This is on DSTV, by the way. It's not just random cartoons that don't even make any sense, right? Some of those cartoons, you ask yourself, what are you learning? What is the learning point? What is the goal of these cartoons, right? I don't want to mention those ones, but I have a list in my mind that I have sat through. Of course, as a responsible parent, I have watched and I've decided this is not suitable for my children's viewing when they have TV time, right? So you have to be able to determine, why are they engaged in this thing? If it's a tool where they are learning words, if they are spending an hour doing that, then you know it's productive time, it's learning time. If they are learning about places, if they are learning about animals, there's learning time. Not just watch for watching sake. No, that's not effective use. That's not efficient use of the access that they have to the screens. And if that is not useful, then they might as well be doing something that is more useful. Rather than absorbing someone else's creation, they can be creative instead. They can draw their own comics. They can write their own stories. They can be the ones that creative stuff will come out of their minds, instead of absorbing other people's creations that are not even beneficial, right? So you have to be deliberate. You have to make sure that this time is spent profitably and they are learning something. I will mention again, like I said earlier, you need to hang out with your child when they are consuming some of these things. If they are playing with an app, sit around there. Make sure that it is what you think it is. It is what you expect it to be. Okay, let's go to tips on how you can ensure quality screen time for your child. Preview programs, games, apps before allowing your child have access to them. So you've heard about there's this thing my children play, word pizza, right? You hear about word pizza. For me now, you think, oh, it might be nice. Since she talked about it, it might be nice for my children to have access to it. But the responsibility is yours for you to download word pizza and play it for a bit and see what it is like, and see if it is the kind of content that you want your child to have access to. Don't take my word for it. Check through it. If it is actually beneficial to your child, then they have access to it. If you decide that it is not, it does not align with your personal values, it does not align with your values, your family values, it does not align with the future you see for your child, as a visionary parent, as an intentional parent, then no, it's off the table. You have checked it, you have previewed it, and you have decided that it is not reasonable for your child to have access to, and you made a decision off of that, and that's okay. But to put your child in front of a TV program or in front of an app or a computer program or a game without running through it yourself is dangerous behavior. It's just risky, because anything can come up, and you want to be sure that the kind of ads that are advertised on these things are things you want your child to see. It's not worth it to use your hand to do yourself, because you bought this tablet. You don't want to set yourself up for a failure in an aspect of your parenting because you spent money to buy a tool. Okay, if they are not learning from it, it is not beneficial. So preview the app, run through the game, check the content of that television program, watch the cartoon, understand what it's about. Make sure there are no undertones, there are no subliminal messages that you don't want your child to have access to, because these things are out there. Like I said, the internet is a dangerous place. It's fantastic, it's an amazing resource, but it is a dangerous place. Number 2, seek out interactive options that engage your child. I talked about it earlier. Make sure that it is something that is making your child move, do something, probably it's something that gets your child moving, that gets them active. It's not just something that they will sit and swipe and just stare, blank stare. They're not learning. But if it is something that is engaging, then learning is taking place. All right. So you want to ensure that such a thing is what your child has access to. Maybe they are watching a cartoon. There's this one. They're older now. A Blaze. No, it's not Blaze. Yes, Blaze. Yes. When they watch Blaze, they get to answer questions, right? Yes. Don't use your hand to do yourself. Thank you. They get to answer questions, right? They are asked questions. They are asked to do math. They are asked to do simple sums. They're asked to define some things in some cases. Maybe if we are trying to get from one place to the other, because they learn physics, they learn some aspects of physics on that show. And this Rusty Rivets, also very educational. In moderation, with regulation, screens can be good. Okay, television can be good, but unrestricted access, not wise, not advisable. So, and make sure it is interactive. So your child is asked to do something, their brains are active, they are not just soaking up, they're not just absorbing. That's my point. Now also use parental controls to block and filter content. Unrestricted access to the internet for your 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old child. Dangerous, very dangerous. So use parental controls. If you set up a tablet for your child, make sure to check how to restrict information. And let me add, when you see that something is PG-13 in Africa, is most likely PG-25. Okay, that's excessive, that's extreme. But what I'm trying to say is, don't assume that because they say it's a family show, or it's PG, or it's which other words they used to describe it, that is safe or whatever. Don't take their word for it. Okay, so if they say something is safe for a 7-year-old, then you want to lower it and make sure it is maybe under 5 or 4 or something when you're using parental controls. That is, again, make sure your child is close by during screen time, so that you can supervise, so that you can be within earshot. Okay, so something pops up on the screen and there's a reaction, you are aware. Screen time is not supposed to replace parenting. The idea that you shove your child in front of a screen and then you go and get something done, it is safer. I shook my head there in case you didn't say. It is safer for you to put that child in a playpen, put toys around them, and let them play. As long as the environment is safe, it is better for them than for you to shove them in front of a screen or give them your phone and say just play, and then you're not even watching. No, it's not safe. It's dangerous. It's not safe. It's unadvisable. It's not beneficial. So don't do it. Okay, please don't do it. Please, I'm asking nicely, please don't do it. Make sure you're close by, you're within earshot, you're able to just glance and supervise and take a look, and just make sure that you're able to be present while your child is having screen time, so that you can supervise the activities. And then when they begin to check other things, maybe they're supposed to be on a particular tab and they are checking other things, then you'll be able to look in on them. Again, don't give a child that you have not taught rules unrestricted access to the internet. Your child has to have a framework, a guideline to run in, to play in, to walk in, such that it guides their thinking. Okay, and build trust with your child, such that in the event that they see something they're not supposed to see, they know to come to you. They don't ask somebody who might not mean well, right? They know to bring it to your attention, and then you have frequent conversations. These things keep popping up, but we have to keep saying it. Have frequent conversations with your child. So what did you do today? That's the next point. Ask your child regularly what programs what things they were watching throughout today. Let them tell you about it. What did they learn from it? What do they think about it? Children are mostly because they can withhold information if they suspect that you're getting a little bit too interested. So you have to find a way, depending on the age of your child, to get them engaged and have a conversation. What did you see today? Okay, tell me about it. And pay full attention, because that's when you pick out information. That's when you know, oh, I have to look into this. This requires attention. If it is prayer, this requires prayer. If it is talking to a professional, then I have to get this done. But when you don't talk to them, you don't know where their mind is at. You don't know what they're thinking about. You don't know their perception of things. But you want to get ahead of these things. So talk to your child, especially about what they see, what they do, what they watched on TV. When they want to give you gist, please pay attention. That is when you learn. Some time ago, let me just share this. Some time ago, one of our sons, the younger one, mentioned something that happened on a cartoon that they see. Now, this cartoon has animals in it, so ordinarily you won't suspect anything. Okay, so he said something about 2 of those animals going someplace by themselves. So I got interested and I was like, oh, okay, so tell me about it. What happened? And he was like, well, he wasn't fully paying attention, but that stood out to him, for him to have mentioned it. So I asked his brother, were you there when, did you see this part of this cartoon? And he said yes. So we had a conversation. And then the older one was like, the boy and the girl cat went to have alone time. Okay, so what happened? did they mention it? Did you see it? What happened? No, they were just talking by themselves. Okay, what was your perception of this? Just to have an idea of where his mind is at, because I wasn't there, right? So I don't know exactly what he saw, but they trusted us enough to volunteer the information, and we realized there was nothing. But if we didn't talk about it, and then what if it turned out to be something? What if it turned out to be something that we needed to sit down and clearly explain, so that there's no misunderstanding, right? So you see the need for you to have regular talks and have conversations, and have your child relaxed around you, such that they can talk freely. It is when they talk freely that you know what is going on. If they feel the need to hide under this because they're not sure of your reaction, or you will fly off the handle, then they won't talk. And when they don't talk, you won't know. But if you balance it, if they do something that is wrong, correct them, but make sure that the correction is wrapped in a consciousness that I'm doing this for your own good. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just trying to set you straight. And again, your values are a pointer for these children. So as they grow older, you can easily say, this does not align with this value. So the child makes the connection quickly. You don't even have to talk too much. They apologize and you forgive and you move on, right? So they are mostly woven into each other. So please pick out what applies to you in this case. Now, the last one, okay, I've talked about this. When watching the programs with your child, discuss what you're watching, educate him or her, make sure they are picking some information here and there, and if something, an ad comes up, explain it. If it is something confusing, make it a learning opportunity. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, lastly, avoid fast-paced programming that your child will not understand, right? Maybe apps with a lot of distracting content, violent stuff. Avoid them. It's not beneficial to you. It's not beneficial to your child. So what's the point? Why should you okay, somebody wants to be in the video. Okay, maybe there's a question. All right, let's take her real quick and see if there's a question for us. Okay. All right. I can't tap on the screen. Okay, the request has gone away. So that's my encouragement to you today. Look out for what your child sees. Make sure it is tailor-made. Make sure it is intentional. Don't do it because everyone is doing it. If your child is a tech whiz, encourage it, but make sure you're doing what is right for that child. Not just because, right? Not because it's a fad for every child, or not because every child in the school has a tablet, therefore your own has to. Why? There has to be an explanation. There has to be a reason why. If you feel that is where your child is at for their work, maybe at school, or you think this child is old enough, this child is aware enough, then you get them a tablet. But don't stick your under 2-year-old in front of a screen. That child needs to be playing, needs to be observing, learning about people, learning social cues, touching stuff, playing with the rattle, doing listening to sounds. Your under 2-year-old should not be in front of a screen. You're taking away from the opportunity that child has to learn about their world around them. Okay, from age 2 to 5, your child can benefit from screen time. An hour a day is okay. Let the child be in front of a screen or whatever, but you're close by. You're conscious. This child is conscious of your presence. You are conscious of what they're watching. Also remember, preview what your child sees before you give them access to it. Before you give a child access to internet, make sure there are ground rules. Make sure your child understands these ground rules. What's the other one? use parental control to block access to what you don't want your child to see. Make sure, work on your relationship with your child so that your child trusts you enough to bring things to your attention. When they see something that confuses them on the internet or on TV, they can come to you. They need to be able to come to you and say, I saw this, I don't quite understand it, and have an honest conversation, age appropriate, honest conversation with your child. That's my encouragement about screens. Maybe sometime we'll talk about the internet and some safeguards you can put in place when you give your child access to the internet. I hope this has been helpful to somebody this evening. Thank you all so much for joining. Banky Cream, Uncle Dare, thank you for joining. Midday Honeys, thank you for joining. Thank you for watching this evening. I hope this has been useful, and thank you to everyone who will be seeing this later. I hope this has been useful to you. All right then, see you sometime soon. Bye bye now.